Have you ever noticed this? Your favorite song sounds absolutely awesome in your headphones, but then you hear it in the school gym and it's just a mess. Well, we're about to figure out why the room you're in can literally make or break the music you love.
I mean, really think about it for a second. You've got that one track, right? It's perfectly crisp, super clear, and it's just you and the music. But then you hear that same song in a huge, echoey space, and it's a completely different experience. That's not a mistake. That's actually science, and it's called acoustics.
See, with headphones, the sound is basically mainlined straight into your ears. It's pure. But in a place like a gym, that sound has to travel. It starts bouncing off everything. The hard floor, the high ceiling, the walls, and it all gets jumbled up into this big, echoey soup. So today, we're going to break down why that happens, and even cooler, how people use science to control it.
To really get this, we gotta start with the absolute basics. Like, what even is sound, and what does it do when it's let loose in a room instead of being trapped in your headphones?
Okay, so every single sound you hear is just a vibration. A speaker cone moving, a guitar string shaking, it all creates a wave that moves through the air, kind of like the ripples you see when you drop a rock in a pond. But here's the thing. When that sound wave hits a wall, it can't just vanish. It has to go somewhere.
And where it goes depends entirely on what it hits. If it smacks into a hard surface, like a concrete wall, that sound wave is going to bounce right off. Just like a basketball, it reflects. But if it hits something soft, like heavy curtains or a thick carpet, that material acts like a giant sponge and just soaks the sound right up. It gets absorbed.
All right, enough theory. Let's take a little trip to see this stuff in action. First up on our virtual tour, a giant old cathedral. We're talking stone walls, stone floors, and super high ceilings. You can probably already hear it in your head, right?
So since these places are basically built out of nothing but hard, bouncy surfaces, those sound waves go nuts. They just bounce and bounce and bounce off everything. And when all that bouncing sound gets collected together in the air, it creates a very particular effect.
It's called reverberation. You've probably heard the shorter term reverb. It's basically all the thousands of echoes of a sound blurring together and just hanging in the air, long after the original sound stopped. In a big cathedral, that sound can hang around for a few seconds.
Here's a great way to think about it, especially if you're a gamer. You know when you're moving fast in a game and the screen gets kind of streaky and blurry? That's motion blur. Well, reverb is pretty much just motion blur for your ears.
Now, this sound blur can be amazing. For slow, powerful music like a choir, all those notes blend together into this massive epic wall of sound. But what if you tried to play a fast guitar solo? It'd be a complete disaster. All the individual notes would just blur into one big muddy mess.
Okay, so a cathedral is basically a giant echo chamber. But what about a place that's actually designed for music to sound perfect? Let's go to our next stop, the modern concert hall.
In a concert hall, the designers are chasing a perfect balance. It's a real tightrope walk. They want some of that echo, that reverb, to make the music feel rich and full. But they also need clarity, so you can hear every single note from every single instrument.
But then there's another huge problem. How do you make sure it sounds great for everybody? Not just for the person with the expensive seat right in the middle, but for the person sitting way up in the back corner too. You can't just have sound bouncing cleanly off flat walls.
The secret weapon here is a really cool trick called diffusion. Instead of having smooth, flat surfaces that reflect sound like a mirror, architects design all these bumpy, weird, uneven surfaces. So when a sound wave hits one, it doesn't just bounce. It shatters and scatters in 100 different directions at once.
Honestly, think of it like a sprinkler system for your lawn. You don't want a giant fire hose blasting just one spot, right? You want a sprinkler that spreads the water evenly over the whole area. Diffusion is a sprinkler for sound. It makes sure everyone in the audience gets soaked in the same amazing audio experience.
And it's not just the stuff on the walls. The actual shape of the room is a huge deal. If you have two big, flat walls facing each other, sound can get trapped bouncing back and forth like a ping-pong ball. It creates this weird, zinging sound called flutter echo. But the fix is surprisingly simple. Just don't build parallel walls. Angle them a little or curve them, and that annoying echo is gone.
All right, final stop on our tour. We've been to the super echoey cathedral and the perfectly balanced concert hall. Now we're going to a place where the room itself is supposed to sound like absolutely nothing. The recording studio.
In a studio, the goal is total and absolute control. You want zero echo, no reverb. You don't want the room to add any character at all. The whole point is to capture the pure, clean sound of a voice or an instrument so that you can add all the cool effects you want later on the computer.
And to pull this off, engineers use a 1-2 punch. First, there's acoustic treatment. That's all about controlling the sound inside the room, using all those squishy foam panels you see to act like sound sponges and absorb any and all reflections. Then there's sound isolation. That's about stopping outside noise from getting in. It's like putting the entire room on the world's most intense do not disturb mode.
So, after our little tour, you can see that making a room sound good isn't magic. It's all science. And architects have this awesome toolkit they use to get the sound just right.
Let's break that toolkit down real quick. First, they use materials. Hard stuff reflects sound, soft stuff absorbs it, and bumpy stuff scatters it. Simple. Next, they use geometry. The actual shape of the room is their secret weapon to kill bad echoes. And get this, they even use tech. Super powerful computers that can actually predict exactly how a room will sound before a single brick is laid.
And all those tools let them create these completely different sound environments. You've got the cathedral with maximum echo, the concert hall with perfect balance, and the studio with total control.
So, now you know the rules. You've got the basic toolkit. Which brings us to the final question. If you could be the architect, if you could design the absolute perfect room for your favorite music, your favorite video game, or even your favorite podcast, what would it sound like?